"Sir, we're going to have to ask you to leave," the security guard said firmly, his hand hovering near his radio. Marcus Johnson stared in disbelief at the bank representative, who had just denied his loan application without even reading past the first page. "I simply asked to speak with a manager about my application," Marcus replied calmly, his voice steady, despite the humiliation burning in his chest. "I haven't raised my voice or been disruptive in any way. We don't approve loans for people like you," Rebecca Davis, the loan officer, insisted, her voice the only raised one in the room. "Security, please escort this man out." What Rebecca didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the man they were throwing out wasn't just any loan applicant. He was Marcus Johnson, the founder and CEO of Capital Trust Bank, the very institution they worked for. And in just moments, everything was about to change. Have you ever been treated unfairly because of how you look? Share your experience in the comments below and subscribe now to see the exact moment these bank employees realize they've made the biggest mistake of their careers. Marcus Johnson didn't come from money. The son of a factory worker and a school teacher. From South Chicago, he had watched his parents dream of opening a small bakery crumble when bank after bank denied their loan applications in the 1980s. Despite perfect credit and a solid business plan, the doors kept closing, sometimes literally, soon as the loan officers saw their faces. "We just don't think your business is viable in that neighborhood," they would say. Or, "Perhaps you should try for a smaller loan amount." Or, most honestly, "The risk factors are too high." Young Marcus understood what those risk factors really meant, even before he had the vocabulary to name it. The color of his parents' skin had determined their financial future more decisively than any number on their credit report. "I'll change this someday," he had promised his tearful mother after their 7th rejection. "I'll build a bank where everyone gets a fair chance." 30 years later, Marcus Johnson had done exactly that. Capital Trust Bank had grown from a single branch in Chicago to a national institution with over 150 locations. Its mission statement, equal opportunity banking, wasn't just marketing. It was Marcus's life purpose. Or so he thought. On a crisp autumn morning, Marcus stood in line at a coffee shop near one of his downtown branches, dressed casually in jeans and a simple button-down shirt. No expensive suit, no security detail, no chauffeur waiting outside, just a man grabbing coffee before heading home. "They rejected me again," a deep voice behind him said, frustration evident in every syllable. Marcus's ears perked up at the familiar complaint. "Let me guess. Capital Trust?" another voice replied knowingly. "Yeah. After all that talk about being different, about serving underrepresented communities. Same old story, man. They took one look at me and suddenly my perfect credit score didn't matter anymore." Marcus froze, coffee forgotten. His bank? The institution he had built specifically to solve this problem? "My cousin tried there too," the second voice continued. Said the loan officer barely looked at his business plan before steering him toward their special community program. Higher interest rates, more restrictions, smaller amount. "And the crazy thing is," the first man added, "it's run by a black man. You'd think he'd understand." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He turned slightly, catching a glimpse of 2 well-dressed black professionals behind him, both wearing the weary expression of men who'd hit the same wall too many times. "I heard Johnson doesn't even visit the branches anymore," the second man said. "Too busy with his mansion and yacht to see what's happening in his own bank." Marcus had no yacht. His home, while comfortable, was far from a mansion. But the perception struck him deeply. Had he become so removed from daily operations that his own bank had betrayed its founding mission? As he paid for his forgotten coffee, a decision crystallized in his mind. It was time to see firsthand what was happening at Capital Trust Bank. "You want me to do what?" Maya Chen, Marcus's longtime executive assistant, stared at him in disbelief across his spacious office the next morning. "I need to become someone else for a day," Marcus repeated, pacing energetically. "Someone who looks like me but isn't me. I need to apply for a loan at our downtown branch as a regular customer." Maya's expression shifted from shock to understanding. "You want to test your own bank?" "Exactly," Marcus nodded. "I've been hearing things. Complaints about loan practices, discrepancies in approval rates. The quarterly reports show everything's fine, but the numbers might be hiding something the spreadsheets can't capture." "The human element," Maya said softly. "The subtle biases. Yes. I need to experience it myself. No special treatment, no recognition. Just a black entrepreneur seeking a business loan." 2 hours later, Marcus stared at himself in the mirror of a small apartment Maya had arranged. A makeup artist who specialized in film productions had subtly transformed his appearance. Different glasses, slightly different hairstyle, some carefully applied makeup to alter his facial features. "Just enough. Remember," the makeup artist instructed as she applied the final touches. "It's not just about looking different. It's about being different. Change your posture. Don't make extended eye contact. Successful CEOs have a certain confidence. You need to dial it back about 30%. Marcus practiced in the mirror, slouching slightly, making his body language more hesitant. The transformation was subtle but effective. No one looking at him would see Marcus Johnson, the banking magnate whose portrait hung in 150 branches nationwide. They would see only Michael Jenkins, a small business owner seeking a $75,000 loan to expand his consulting business. "The application is perfect," Maya said, handing him a folder of meticulously prepared documents. "Clean credit history, 8 years of business success, proper collateral, excellent revenue projections. By any objective standard, this should be approved immediately." Marcus took the folder, feeling its weight, not just the physical weight of paper and ink, but the weight of what it represented. Truth, accountability, the very principles upon which he had built his bank. "What if you don't like what you find?" Maya asked quietly. Marcus looked at her, his expression resolute. "Then I'll fix it." Want to see what happens when a powerful CEO experiences discrimination at his own company? Hit the like button and subscribe. For the most satisfying workplace justice story you'll hear this week. Capital Trust Bank's downtown branch stood imposingly on the corner of Monroe and State Street, its glass and steel architecture designed to convey both stability and transparency. Marcus had personally approved the design years ago, insisting on glass walls for the loan officers' offices, a physical representation of the bank's commitment to transparent practices. Now, as he pushed through the revolving door as Michael Jenkins, he wondered what those transparent walls would reveal. The morning bustle of the bank surrounded him, tellers assisting customers, security guards scanning the lobby, loan officers leading clients to glass-walled meeting rooms. Marcus took a deep breath and approached the reception desk. "Good morning," he said to the receptionist, a young woman named Tara according to her nameplate. "I have an appointment at 10:30 to discuss a business loan. The name is Michael Jenkins." Tara glanced at her computer screen, then back at him with considerably less warmth than her initial greeting. "Jenkins. Yes, I see it here. Fill out these forms completely and return them to me. Someone will be with you when they're available." She slid a clipboard across the counter without making eye contact. "I believe my appointment was for 10:30, Marcus noted politely. "It was 10:28. We're running a bit behind today," Tara replied without looking up from her screen. "Please have a seat." Marcus took the clipboard and found a chair in the waiting area, positioning himself where he could observe the entire lobby. As he filled out information he knew by heart, albeit with different personal details, he watched the flow of customers and staff with a trained eye. At 10:37, a white man in his mid-40s entered the bank and approached Tara's desk. Marcus couldn't hear their exchange, but he noticed immediately how Tara's body language changed. She smiled warmly, stood up, and called over a loan officer who had been visible in his office. "Kevin, Mr. Peterson is here for his 10:45. The pa." Loan officer, Kevin Mills, one of the bank's top performers according to the quarterly reports, strode over immediately, hand extended. "Richard, great to see you again. Come on back to my office. I've got everything ready for you." Marcus watched as Kevin guided Mr. Peterson to his office, a hand casually resting on the man's shoulder in a gesture of familiarity. No clipboard. No waiting area. No, we're running behind. At 10:52, a young black couple entered and approached Tara's desk. Marcus observed as the same scenario that had greeted him played out again. Forms on a clipboard, directions to the waiting area, no estimated time for assistance. By 11:15, Marcus had been waiting for 45 minutes. During that time, 3 more white customers had arrived and been promptly assisted. The black couple who had arrived after him continued to wait as well. Finally, at 11:18, Tara called out, "Mr. Jenkins? Rebecca can see you now." Marcus approached a glass-walled office where a loan officer in her 30s sat typing at her computer. Her nameplate identified her as Rebecca Davis, Assistant Vice President, Commercial Loans. "Have a seat," she said without looking up or standing. To greet him. Marcus sat quietly, observing as she continued typing for nearly a full minute before acknowledging his presence. "So, Mr. Jenkins," she finally said, pulling his application toward her. "You're applying for a $75,000 business loan?" "That's correct," Marcus replied, opening his portfolio. "I've been running Jenkins Consulting for 8 years, specializing in supply chain optimization for medium-sized manufacturers. The loan would fund our expansion into 2 new markets where we've already secured preliminary contracts." Rebecca gave his portfolio a cursory glance, flipping pages rapidly without reading them. "Consulting, huh?" she said, setting the portfolio aside much too quickly. "And where did you get your business experience?" The question hung in the air. Marcus had included his MBA credentials and 12 years of industry experience on the very first page of the portfolio. "As noted in my business overview, I have an MBA from Northwestern and 12 years of experience in the industry, including management positions at 2 Fortune 100 companies," he replied evenly. "Northwestern? Interesting." Her tone suggested skepticism rather than interest. Through the glass walls, Marcus could see Kevin enthusiastically showing Mr. Peterson something on his computer screen. Their body language told the story. Leaning in together, occasional laughter, a relationship being built. At one point, Kevin slapped his desk in apparent excitement. "That's exactly the kind of growth potential we love to see." Kevin's voice carried through the office. "With your background, this approval is practically guaranteed." Rebecca turned back to Marcus's application, her expression pinched. "Mr. Jenkins, loans of this size require extensive scrutiny. The approval committee will want to know why you need such a large amount and whether you truly understand the obligation you're taking on. The business plan details exactly how every dollar will be allocated," Marcus replied, pulling out specific pages from his portfolio. As you can see, we've secured contracts that will generate an estimated $350,000 in new revenue within 12 months, more than covering the loan repayment schedule. Rebecca barely glanced at the documents. Instead, she leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers. "Let's be honest, Mr. Jenkins," she said, her voice taking on a different tone. "First-time applicants rarely qualify for amounts this large. We have a community business builder program that might be more appropriate for you. The qualification requirements are more flexible." Marcus knew exactly what this program was. He had approved its creation as a supplement to standard loans, not as a replacement. It carried interest rates 2.5% higher than standard business loans, with more restrictive terms. "I believe my qualifications exceed the requirements for your standard business expansion loan," Marcus noted calmly. "Why would I choose a product with higher interest rates and more restrictive terms?" Rebecca's expression hardened slightly. "Mr. Jenkins, banking is complex. These specialized products provide structure and guidance while you build credibility." The implication was clear. You people need more structure. "My credit score is 802, Marcus replied evenly. "I've never missed a payment on any obligation. My business has been profitable every quarter since inception. What about my application suggests I need special guidance?" Rebecca shifted uncomfortably. "I'm speaking generally, of course, but realistic expectations are important. A loan of this size, well, it's substantial. What happens next will change. This bank forever." Subscribe now to witness the moment these employees realize who they've been discriminating against. Through the glass walls of Rebecca's office, Marcus noticed a middle-aged white couple being escorted to another loan officer's desk. The contrast in treatment was immediately apparent. Smiles, handshakes, coffee offered, chairs pulled out. "If you'd like to apply for a smaller loan amount, perhaps $20,000, we could expedite the process," Rebecca suggested, changing tactics. "I'm not a first-time applicant," Marcus corrected her calmly. "As my documentation shows, I've successfully managed business credit lines of up to $250,000 with perfect repayment history. The $75,000 I'm requesting is actually conservative relative to our projected expansion needs." Rebecca's irritation became increasingly visible. Every time she attempted to undermine the application, Marcus responded with precise, knowledgeable answers that should have strengthened his case. After 20 minutes of this back and forth, Rebecca glanced at her watch with exaggerated concern. "Mr. Jenkins, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I think we've covered enough for today. I'll need to submit this for review by our committee, which typically takes 7 to 10 business days." "That's interesting," Marcus replied. "I noticed Mr. Peterson earlier was told his approval was practically guaranteed during his initial consultation. Is there a different review process for certain clients?" The pointed observation landed like a slap. Rebecca's face flushed slightly. "Every situation is different," she said dismissively. "Mr. Peterson has a long-standing relationship with our bank." "I see," Marcus nodded. "And how does one establish such a relationship if loan applications are treated differently from the start?" Rebecca's patience was clearly wearing thin. She shuffled papers unnecessarily, a delaying tactic Marcus had seen countless times in negotiations. "Look," she said in a lower voice, not realizing how perfectly Marcus could hear her. "We're wasting time here when we have serious clients waiting. This guy isn't Capital Trust material." The slur hung in the air for a moment. Marcus felt a genuine surge of anger, but maintained his composed exterior, though he allowed just enough reaction to show that he had heard the comment. "I'd like to speak with your manager, please," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. Rebecca's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected to be overheard. "The branch manager is in meetings all day," she replied coldly. "I've told you what the process is. If you're not satisfied with that, perhaps another bank would be a better fit for your situation." Marcus remained seated, his posture relaxed, but dignified. "I believe I have the right to speak with a manager about my application and about your conduct during this meeting. I'll wait here until they're available." Rebecca's composure cracked further. "Mr. Jenkins, I've been more than patient. If you're going to be difficult, I'll have to ask you to leave." "Requesting to speak with a manager is a standard customer right," Marcus replied evenly. "There's nothing difficult about that request." Rebecca stood abruptly, her chair rolling backward from the force. "I'm not going to argue with you. This meeting is over." Marcus remained seated. "I'll wait for the manager, thank you." Rebecca's face reddened further. "Security!" she called out, loud enough to be heard through the glass partition. A security guard, a young man named Jason according to his badge, approached the door of the office, hand instinctively moving to the radio on his belt. "Is there a problem, Ms. Davis?" Jason asked, looking between the two with confusion. "Mr. Jenkins is being confrontational and refusing to leave after his appointment has concluded," Rebecca explained, her description bearing no resemblance to the reality visible to anyone watching. "Please escort him out of the building." Jason hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the mismatch between Rebecca's claim and what he was seeing. "Sir," Jason addressed Marcus, "I'll need to ask you to come with me. I've simply requested to speak with a manager about my loan application," Marcus explained to Jason calmly. "I have not raised my voice or been confrontational in any way." "He's causing a disturbance," Rebecca insisted, her own voice actually the only raised one in the room. "Sir, I need you to come with me now," Jason said to Marcus, his hand still on his radio. "Please don't make this difficult." Marcus stood slowly, gathering his documents with deliberate care. "I understand you're doing your job, Jason. I'll go with you. But I want to be clear that I'm being removed for requesting to speak with the manager after experiencing discriminatory treatment." "Don't listen to him," Rebecca cut in. "He's just angry his loan didn't qualify. We see this all the time." Other customers in the bank had begun to notice the situation unfolding. Some looked away uncomfortably while others watched with undisguised interest. The young black couple Marcus had noticed earlier exchanged knowing glances. As Jason began escorting Marcus toward the exit, they passed Kevin's office. His conversation with Mr. Peterson was easily audible. "With your qualifications, we could actually approve up to $150,000 if you'd like to consider a larger investment," Kevin was saying enthusiastically. "The rates are excellent right now." The irony of the moment was almost too perfect, as if staged to underscore everything that had just transpired in Rebecca's office. Same bank, same day, dramatically different treatment. What Rebecca Davis didn't know, couldn't have imagined in her worst nightmare, was that her career at Capital Trust Bank was about to come to an abrupt end. The security cameras silently recording throughout the bank had captured every moment of their interaction, and the man being escorted out by security was about to reveal himself as the founder and CEO of the entire organization. The walk through the Capital Trust lobby felt endless. Every step reinforced what Marcus now understood with painful clarity. His bank, his life's work, had failed its core mission. As they neared the entrance doors, Marcus reached into his pocket and removed his cell phone. "I need to make a quick call before I leave," he said calmly to Jason. "It will only take a moment." Jason hesitated, glancing back toward Rebecca's office where she was watching intently. "Sir, I've been instructed to escort you outside, Jason replied uncertainly. 1 minute, Marcus said, his tone shifting subtly, a hint of the authority he typically wielded emerging through his disguise. That's all I need. Something in Marcus's demeanor made Jason pause. He nodded slightly. 1 minute. Marcus dialed. A number from memory, a direct line to Maya Chen, who answered immediately. Maya, it's Marcus. I'm at the downtown branch. I need you here now. There was no explanation needed. On my way, she replied without hesitation, already grabbing her credentials. Marcus ended the call and turned to Jason. Thank you for your patience. I believe things are about to change. From across the lobby, Rebecca was now approaching with long, angry strides, clearly unhappy that her instructions weren't being followed to the letter. I thought I was clear, Rebecca snapped at Jason. Remove this man from the premises immediately. Before Jason could respond, Marcus began removing the subtle disguise elements, the glasses, the applied facial features, and stood straighter, his posture shifting from the slightly hunched stance he'd adopted to the commanding presence that his employees knew well. Rebecca's irritation turned to confusion as she watched this transformation begin. Around the lobby, other employees had started to notice something unusual happening near the entrance. The main entrance doors burst open as Maya Chen strode in, her expression composed but intense as she scanned the lobby quickly, locating Marcus. Everyone, stop what you're doing right now, she commanded, her voice carrying across the now hushed space. The authority in her tone was unmistakable. Every head turned, every conversation halted. Even Rebecca took an instinctive step backward. Maya's gaze settled on Rebecca with laser-like intensity. Ms. Davis, I presume? Rebecca nodded mutely, confusion evident on her face. Maya turned to the gathered crowd of employees and customers, her voice projecting clearly throughout the space. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? I need to make something absolutely clear to everyone in this branch. This man, she gestured toward Marcus, is Marcus Johnson, the founder and CEO of Capital Trust Bank. The words landed like a thunderclap in the silent lobby. Gasps echoed from every corner. A customer dropped her purse, the contents spilling unnoticed across the marble floor. Rebecca's face drained of color so rapidly it was as if someone had opened a valve. Her mouth opened and closed without producing sound. That's not possible, she finally managed to stammer. Mr. Johnson is standing right in front of you, Maya finished for her. The man you just called not Capital Trust material. The man you refused to give a fair hearing to. The man you had security escort out of his own bank. Marcus stepped forward, the transformation now complete. Without the disguise elements, with his natural posture and commanding presence restored, he was instantly recognizable as the man whose portrait hung in the lobby. He gestured toward the lapel of his jacket where a small, nearly invisible camera was discreetly pinned. This entire interaction has been recorded, Marcus stated calmly. Along with the bank's own security footage, we now have comprehensive documentation of what transpired here today. The branch had fallen into absolute silence, the kind of silence that has weight and substance. Customers stood frozen, witnessing a scene none of them would ever forget. Employees looked at each other in growing horror as the implications became clear. Rebecca's face had now progressed from white to a sickly gray. Recognition dawned in her eyes as she finally saw through the minimal disguise. Mr. Johnson, there's been a terrible misunderstanding, she began, her voice quavering. If I had known it was you? That's precisely the point, Miss Davis, Marcus interrupted, his voice icy. You shouldn't need to know who I am to treat a loan applicant with dignity and fairness. The fact that you would have behaved differently if you knew my identity only confirms what happened here today." Maya stepped forward, her expression a combination of professional control and barely contained fury. "Mr. Johnson has been receiving complaints about discriminatory lending practices at this branch," she announced loud enough for everyone to hear. Today, he decided to see for himself. 3 hours later, the main conference room of Capital Trust's downtown branch was filled to capacity. Every employee, from tellers to loan officers, had been summoned for an emergency meeting. The atmosphere was tense, faces showing varying degrees of concern, shame, and anxiety. Marcus stood at the head of the conference table, no longer in disguise, his presence commanding the room. Behind him, a large screen displayed the Capital Trust logo alongside the company's founding mission statement, Equal Opportunity Banking. "What happened today represents a profound failure," Marcus began, his voice grave but measured. "Not just of individuals, but of our culture, our training, and our values as an institution." With a few keystrokes, Maya changed the screen to display footage from Marcus's hidden camera. For the next several minutes, the room watched in uncomfortable silence as Rebecca's treatment of Michael Jenkins played out in high definition. The dismissive body language, the condescending tone, the blatant steering toward inferior loan products. Interspersed with this footage were split-screen comparisons showing how white customers had been treated during the same time period, the stark contrast undeniable. When the video ended, Marcus allowed the silence to linger before speaking. "This is not an isolated incident," he stated firmly. "We've received multiple complaints about discriminatory practices at several branches in the past year. I've spent the morning reviewing denied loan applications from the past quarter. The pattern is unmistakable and indefensible." Maya stepped forward, her expression resolute. "As of this moment, Rebecca Davis has been terminated for cause," she announced. "Additionally, Kevin Mills has been suspended pending further investigation into discriminatory lending practices, and Tara Wilson has been reassigned for retraining." Marcus moved from behind the table, walking slowly among his employees as he spoke. "I built Capital Trust to be different," he continued, "to be better. Today I learned that we have failed that mission. The discrimination my parents faced decades ago is still happening right here within these walls, bearing our name." He returned to the front of the room, his expression shifting from disappointment to determination. "Starting tomorrow, we are implementing comprehensive changes across all Capital Trust branches, beginning with this one. Every employee will undergo enhanced fair lending training, not the standardized compliance videos you're used to, but intensive real-world scenarios with professional facilitators." Maya advanced to the next slide, displaying details of the new initiatives. "We're also launching a mystery shopper program," Marcus explained. "Individuals of different racial backgrounds, with identical financial qualifications, will apply for loans at every Capital Trust branch nationwide. The results will be published internally and reviewed by our newly established Lending Equity Committee. Before this day ends, I will personally review every loan application that has been denied at this branch in the past 3 months," he continued. "Those that meet our actual qualification standards will be approved immediately, with apology calls from me directly." He surveyed the room, making eye contact with as many employees as possible. Banking must be an equalizer, not a divider. Capital must flow based on merit, not privilege. These aren't just words. This is our purpose, our reason for existing. And starting today, we will live up to it, or we will fail trying. Later that evening, As the sun set over the city skyline, Marcus's car pulled up outside the coffee shop, where this journey had begun just 24 hours earlier. By remarkable coincidence, or perhaps not coincidence at all, the same two men whose conversation had sparked his undercover operation were there, discussing their financial challenges over coffee. Marcus approached them directly, extending his hand in greeting. "Excuse me, gentlemen. My name is Marcus Johnson. I'm the CEO of Capital Trust Bank. I overheard your conversation here yesterday about difficulties getting loans approved. I'd like to personally review your applications, if you'd be willing." Their initial shock and suspicion gradually gave way to cautious optimism as Marcus explained what had transpired, omitting names but sharing the broader revelation of his undercover experience. By the time they parted ways an hour later, both men had appointments at Marcus's executive office the following morning. For Marcus Johnson, the journey that began with an overheard conversation had transformed into a mission to reclaim not just his bank's purpose, but the very premise of fair lending in America. The disguise was gone, but the clarity it had provided would remain, informing every policy, every hire, every loan decision going forward. If you found this story powerful, please hit the subscribe button and share with others who need to hear this message. Together, we can make a difference.